The state may call its next witness.
Your Honor, at this time the state calls Agent Brent Petersen.
Hey, Agent, will you please come forward? Stand behind the witness chair and raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this case?
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat. Please remove your mask.
Thank you.
State your full name and spell it.
My first name is Brent, B-R-E-N-T. Last name is Petersen, P-E-T-E-R-S-E-N.
All right, couple things to keep in mind. When testifying, the court reporter is taking everything down. Only one person can talk at a time. Wait till the question's finished before you answer. Yes or no questions instead of shaking your head. No or uh-huhs. If an objection is made, stop talking immediately. Don't answer the question unless I tell you to. And if you don't understand the question, please ask for clarification.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Counsel?
Could you state your occupation for the record?
I'm a special agent for the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the BCA.
How long have you been with the BCA?
5.5 years. I started in June of 2016.
What unit are you currently serving in?
I'm in our Force Investigations Unit.
Now you're a licensed peace officer, correct?
Yes.
And you take continuing education courses to maintain that license?
Yes.
Prior to working for the BCA, did you have other law enforcement experience?
Yes.
Could you explain that experience to the jury?
From 2001 until 2005, I was a police officer for the University of Minnesota Police Department here in Minneapolis. And then from 2005 until 2016, I worked for the Rochester Police Department in Rochester, Minnesota, where I was a patrol officer, investigator, and a sergeant, a patrol supervisor.
You were promoted to a detective level as early as 2008, correct?
Correct.
In regard to the BCA, you arrived in 2016. Could you describe the roles that you've had working with the BCA?
Sure. Initially, I was hired to work in what's known as our predatory crimes section, which dealt with primarily child pornography, predatory offenders, human trafficking. In November approximately of 2016, I transferred to our homicide unit, or homicide section, excuse me, here in the metro area.
In all of that experience, dating back to 2008 with Rochester, through all of your time in the BCA, that's all been investigative?
With the exception of 2 years, 2014 to June of 2016, where I was back on patrol as a sergeant with the Rochester Police Department.
Okay. Now, as part of your work in the Force Investigations Unit, you'd agree that you work on officer-involved shooting cases?
Yes.
Agent Phil has told the jury about your unit. I just want to know a little bit about your experience in that unit. In the 6 years you have been with the BCA, how many officer-involved shooting cases have you worked on?
I'm right up around 73 use of force investigations.
Okay, so use of force investigations, do all of those include fatalities?
No,
How many of those included fatalities?
I don't know.
Okay. How many of those cases have you been the lead agent on?
13.
Okay. And is there a role other than lead case agent which you have served in?
Yes.
And what is that?
Sometimes we have co-agents, co-lead agents. Other times it'll be something as simple as my only role will be to attend an autopsy or something like that.
Okay. In support in various ways?
In support, correct.
Okay. For example, in the case involving Kim Potter, what was your role?
In support of the case agent.
All right. I now want to talk about this case, April 11th of 2021. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
What were you doing?
I believe it was a Sunday, so I was at home and off duty.
Did you receive some information that prompted a response from you?
Yes.
And what was that information?
I was notified with other members of my team that there was an incident in Brooklyn Center for which we had been requested to investigate.
Okay. And would you agree that essentially that information prompted you to respond to 63rd and Catherine and then Brooklyn Center to assist Agent Phil in the investigation of this case?
That's correct.
Okay. And would you agree you arrived at scene about 5 p.m.?
That's correct.
At the time of your arrival, was there any personnel from the BCA present?
Yes.
And would that include both Agent Phil and other members of the crime lab team and other agents from the BCA?
That's correct.
What actions did you take at the scene upon arrival?
When I got there, I parked outside of the perimeter that had been established. I met with Agent Phil, who was my supervisor, as well as with Melissa Lauren, who was our crime scene team leader, and just kind of information was a little vague at the time. I got there, but more was coming in. Just kind of got an overview of the scene. I made some observations of the scene also.
Yep. Did you spend any time attempting to find witnesses?
I did, yes.
And was one of the witnesses that you ultimately spoke to a Carrie Blansky, a neighbor?
Yes.
Did you later obtain a video evidence from Ms. Blansky?
Yes.
Okay. With regard to a vehicle that was at the scene, a white Buick, did you assist in towing that vehicle?
Yes.
And where did it get towed to?
BCA headquarters in St. Paul.
Okay. And do you remember how long you were at the scene?
Probably about 2 to 2.5 hours.
Okay. So you left perhaps around 7:30 p.m.?
That sounds right, yes.
All right. Now, in addition to the work that you've done, in this case at the scene, or you did at the scene, did you gather additional evidence during the course of the investigation?
Yes.
Okay, I want to talk about some of those tasks, but not all. Do you recall continuing your work on the case on April 13th by going to the medical examiner's office?
Yes.
Why did you go to the medical examiner's office?
There were a few items that were available for us to pick up that we needed to get some of those submitted into our laboratory for further testing.
And did you pick up those items?
I did.
What were those items?
I picked up 5 items. One was what's called a blood on spot card. It's a DNA sample from the deceased. I pulled a projectile or bullet. I acquired fingernail clippings from each hand of the deceased, and then pulled head hairs, pulled hairs from the deceased.
Okay. And you agree that the blood sample or the blood spot was for another person to conduct DNA testing?
Yes.
Okay. And this fired bullet, that also was collected for subsequent testing?
Correct.
Okay. And am I correct that you transported these and inventoried these at the BCA?
Yes.
Okay. And were each of these individual items assigned an item number?
Yes.
And would you agree those items are just the 5 items you said, 29.1, .2, .3, .4, and .5?
That's correct.
Okay. And that blood DNA sample, that was the one that you identified as 29.1?
Correct.
And the bullet that you recovered, that was identified as 29.2?
Correct.
And are you aware that that blood sample or that spot was later issued a separate BCA lab item number as item 30?
Yeah. Yes.
And that fired bullet was issued a separate BCA lab item number 31?
Yes.
All right. When you collected that fired bullet, you know that it is now affixed with both your item number 29.2 and the BCA lab number 31, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. At this time, the state offers Exhibit 201.
Objection to 201. Exhibit 201 will be admitted.
Agent Petersen, I'm showing you Exhibit 201. Would you recognize this as the fired bullet you collected from the medical examiner's office?
Yes.
You have permission to publish this item on the Elmo? Oh. Now, Agent Petersen, did you have an opportunity to look at this fired bullet?
At the time of my collecting the item,
No, I'm sorry. Recently, as it appears to you here.
yes, recently I had.
Okay. And did it have, were you able to identify the type of ammunition it is based on your inspection?
Yeah, that appears to be hollow point ammunition.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with hollow point ammunition, given your experience in law enforcement?
Yes.
And are you familiar with what happens when hollow point ammunition hits an object?
Yes.
And what happens?
Generally, it's designed to, the term is mushroom, or kind of fold out like you see it appears, and that is to slow the velocity of it as it hits an object, and also it creates kind of a larger wound path and can cause more damage to tissue and organs in a person.
Because what you're saying is, when it's designed to slow down, it's actually designed to use the body as drag to slow down.
Right, yes.
And I'd like to turn your attention back to the morning of April 12th. Did you learn that the BCA had received some video evidence regarding this case?
Yes.
And what video evidence, did you review some of that video evidence?
Yes.
What video evidence have you reviewed?
I reviewed body-worn camera video from Officer Potter, Officer Lucky, and Sergeant Johnson.
Okay. Did you also review a squad video?
Yes, the squad video from Officer Lucky's and Officer Potter's squad car.
And did you review the time frame which captured the incident we're all here for today?
Yes.
And you ultimately wrote some reports about your review of those materials, correct?
Correct.
In preparation for trial, did you examine those videos, particularly specific moments or stills of those videos?
Yes.
And those still images isolated specific moments which attracted your attention, am I correct?
Correct.
And when you reviewed those still images, were they fair and accurate sort of excerpts or taken from the videos that we've seen here in trial?
Yes.
Pardon me, that you have reviewed?
That I've reviewed, yes.
Okay, I now want to go through a series of still images. First, I want to direct your attention to a particular moment as the defendant approaches Daunte Wright's vehicle. Do you recall seeing a moment shown on the squad video which attracted your attention?
Yes.
Okay. What did you perceive occurring at that moment which attracted your attention?
We objected that something to be heard.
Yes. All right, is counsel ready for the, all right, the objection is sustained. Is counsel ready for the jury?
Sure, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, counsel, or deputy. Oh, you may approach. Thanks, Alan. Thank you. Yes. Okay, please be seated. All right, Mr. Larson, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. When we left off, we were discussing your review of the video evidence in this case. Do you recall that, Agent?
Yes.
And are you aware of an additional video that was created in preparation for trial using these independent videos, which essentially was a synced up composite video of Officer Potter's body-worn camera, Officer Sergeant Johnson's body-worn camera, and the squad still video?
Yes.
And that was it was a fair and accurate composite video of these three video sources, correct?
What I reviewed, yes.
Yes. The state offers Exhibit 204.
Is 204 already into, is 204 is a photo of what?
204 is a composite video which has never been shown with this jury. It's the synced up video of Officer Potter and Sergeant Johnson's body-worn cameras along with the squad video, which separately illuminates the location of all of the individuals,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
The objection is overruled, and you may show that.
Now, Sergeant Johnson, during the playing of this exhibit, I may pause the video several times and ask you several questions, okay?
Okay.
Please publish.
We will be here in a second.
Sergeant Johnson, or pardon me, strike that. Agent Petersen, right now you see two images on your screen.
Yes.
And in the top left corner, do you know where that video source is from?
That is from Officer Potter's body camera.
Okay, and the image on the right is going to be Sergeant Johnson's?
Yes.
Okay, in a moment, a third image is going to appear on the screen. Is that the squad video of the same time frame?
It should be, yes.
Okay, and this image begins at 2:01. Okay, please start. All right, so continue. Pause the video. Sergeant, pardon me, Agent Petersen, at the time you, we paused, you talked about observing something that was noteworthy to you about how Officer Potter approached the vehicle. Do you recall what that was? Some conduct that Officer Potter had, which you noted.
Yes, but I guess I'm not seeing it in where the video is.
Pardon me. When it occurs, could you please identify and we'll pause the video?
Yes.
Continue to go.
Right there.
Pause. What did you observe?
It appeared to me in watching this that there was a manipulation in some way of her holster.
Why did that attract your attention?
I've seen it before on other videos I've watched of officers. I myself have done that when I was on patrol. Just caught my attention.
Yep. And when you're on patrol, what exactly are you believing is occurred on the video?
So I carried the same type of holster that Officer Potter used, a level 2, and it would be my practice at times to, when I was making a traffic stop, unlatch the first level of protection or safety on the holster, just to, I guess, give myself a little of an advantage should I need to draw.
So essentially, it's a way to, if you had to draw your firearm, you're preparing to do it more quickly?
Yes.
As leading, Your Honor,
The objection is sustained.
will the answer be taken?
I don't believe he has answered.
Well, why would you do that?
It would just make drawing the firearm easier, more efficient.
Okay. Can you continue to play the video?
You're under arrest, Daunte.
You got a warrant.
You're not doing that?
Don't. You said stop, bro. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'll tease you!
Just stay back.
I'll tease you! Taser, taser, taser!
Ah, he shot me.
Oh, shit! I just shot him.
You dead?
Yes!
Okay.
I grabbed the wrong fucking gun! I shot him! Oh my god!
Jim, sit down.
Oh my god!
PI accident, 63rd and Captain Drive, Flexion 38 stop, start north on the red.
Starting north on the red, then you repeat your turn, please.
Rest of this.
Agent Petersen, when you reviewed that video, did you write reports as to what you observed?
Yes.
And when you took those notes, you were watching these videos because you knew that you were conducting or participating in the conducting of a criminal investigation, correct?
Correct.
And certain observations were important to your investigation, correct?
Correct.
Did you take note in your review of the video of whether Sergeant Johnson's head was visible on Kim Potter's body-worn camera during the incident?
I did take note of that, yes.
And was it visible throughout the incident?
His head,
Object to this as an opinion of the witness. The body camera speaks for itself. All of them do.
Okay. Is overruled, and you may answer the question.
Agent Petersen, was it possible to see Sergeant Johnson's head throughout the incident from Officer Potter's body-worn camera?
there were times where you could see his head, yes.
Okay. And during those times, What direction was his head pointed?
Towards the interior of the vehicle.
Okay. Was it possible to see his face?
At times, yes.
Okay. At the time of the shot, was it possible to see his face?
I recall seeing the top of his head and not his face.
Okay. So the video revealed that he was looking down?
Yes.
When you examined the video, did you recall examining Officer Lucky's position at various points during the incident?
Yes.
Okay. Could you describe what you observed with regard to the location of Officer Lucky's feet, shoulders, elbows
At what point?
throughout the
Throughout.
10, 12, 14-second period of the struggle with Mr. Wright?
He's standing outside the vehicle on the driver's side, and does reach in to try to restrain Mr. Wright.
Did you observe that his feet and shoulders remained out of the vehicle?
Checked it on his leading, Your Honor, and the video speaks for itself.
The objection is sustained.
What with regard to, were you able to observe where Officer Lucky's shoulders were throughout this
At
incident?
what time, Your Honor?
Your Honor, I do have still images if you'd like me to show them.
Oh, just a moment, please. Would you like to finish your question and make it more precise as to time?
Mr. Miller, could you please put up on the video for the time of 2:01 and 58 seconds? Showing you now Exhibit 204. It's paused at 2:01 and 58 seconds. Would you agree?
Yes.
Where is Officer Lucky's body at this moment?
It is outside the driver's compartment of the vehicle.
Okay. Where are his hips?
They're slightly behind the open door, driver's door.
And can you infer where his elbows are?
Well, on the bottom squad video, you can see his right arm is outside the vehicle, and at the top left video, you can just make that his elbow appears on this video to be outside the vehicle.
Okay. Can we go ahead 2 seconds to 2:02 and 00? Okay, you'd agree the video is now paused at 2:02 and 0 seconds, correct?
Correct.
Can you see where Officer Lucky's body is at this time?
From this video, the bottom video there from the squad camera, it appears that his feet and legs are outside the vehicle on the pavement, and his torso is kind of leaning towards the open door.
If you look at the top left corner in Officer Potter's body on camera, are Officer Lucky's shoulders inside the vehicle or outside the vehicle?
Based on the view of this video, it does not appear that his shoulders are in the vehicle.
Okay, let's go ahead 1 second. Officer Petersen, I've just moved ahead 1 second. Would your answers remain the same for this still image?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now I want to turn back to 2:01 and 59 seconds, and I have another couple questions for you, sir. Okay. Did you also examine Sergeant Johnson's position at various points during this incident?
Your Honor, I object to this. The video speaks for itself, the time speaks for itself. This officer's view of it should not be, the jury's the one that decides it's not this officer. He's not an expert of videos.
All right. Counsel, will you please? Members of the jury, we're going to break for lunch, okay? So we'll start up again at about 1:30. Okay, you may step down.
Your Honor, may I, Paul and I talk with the special agent during this lunch break because I want to make sure that I know what he's going to say, and we sure haven't found anything out by now. I'd like to talk to him.
I don't think there's anything to prohibit you from talking to the agent. All right. Why don't we take a lunch break and let's everybody here. You know what my problem is. You've got a witness telling the jury what is on a piece of evidence, which is the evidence is the video. And it seems like this is more like a final argument material where you stop the video and say, look, both of his feet are on the ground. He's not hanging out of the car. Why do you need a supposed expert witness to describe what's on a video?
I did not qualify Agent Petersen as an expert. He did review these videos and knows details of them because it was part of his investigation. And in fact, a review of these videos was a significant part of this investigation, as it is now with many different criminal investigations, including ones involving officer-involved shootings.
Okay, but
So-
when you call him a BCA or, given his position, the jury's going to get the impression that he is an expert. So,
Your Honor, I just wanted to clarify that the state's intent this morning was to introduce a series of still images which show that Johnson's body is completely out of the vehicle. These were selected to provide efficient and clear testimony about that fact. I understand the court's ruling excluding those. So then at this point, the state is going to go through those several seconds of video that have been introduced for the jury so that they can see and the state can make that very simple point that has been observed by Agent Petersen. It has been more difficult using the video as opposed to the still images, and I apologize that I can't do it more efficiently than I was intending to do it this morning with the still images. Thank you.
What they neglect to mention, Your Honor, is that taser, I'm going to tase you, then a few seconds go by, I'm going to tase you again, and then taser. When the taser was yelled, that's the signal for the officers to try and get out of the car. Right after she yelled that, she shot and they're moving out. So to impeach Johnson, which they didn't use this video to impeach him like they're supposed to, they didn't do that. Now they're trying to impeach him by some witness saying that, no, he was out of the car. That's ridiculous. That's just not good evidence.
Okay, the still photographs, I think, are a little, they don't give the whole picture because the timing, it doesn't show the timing. So the video has already been shown. It shows the timing. It shows everybody's body position at very specific times and when it happened and what their body positions were. So I excluded the photographs for two reasons. Number one, a number of them were not provided to the defense beforehand. And secondly, it was duplicative of what has already been submitted, which is the video. And third, it can be misleading because it's a shot at a certain period of time that doesn't show the entire sequence.
And I would only say, Your Honor, that still imagery does not somehow prevent the jury from reviewing the entire video in the manner in which the court suggested, but it does often have the ability to impeach some sort of sense that there was a fog of war where Johnson didn't know where his body was located. It specifically can rebut that notion that he was going to be being dragged on this incident. That was a significant point. It's basically defense number 2 that we've had to hear about all of last week. So the fact that there is still imagery that can illuminate the credibility of that claim is what the state has been attempting to do during the testimony phase of this case. Certainly it's going to be brought up in closing argument, but the fact that we can do that in closing argument doesn't abrogate the fact that we can also use a witness to illuminate and to describe video evidence, which is a significant aspect of any investigation involving body-worn camera. Respectfully, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if they wanted to impeach Mr. Johnson, Major Johnson, they could have cross-examined him on it, like a lawyer should do, and not come back later without showing us photos and use still photos. That's not fair, and it's not admissible. It's simply not.
Your Honor, if I may at that point.
I'm trying not to have multiple lawyers argue, I get it, but if I were impeaching with a prior inconsistent statement, that might be one thing with Major Johnson. But as you recall, in chambers, I raised an objection to lay witnesses being unnoticed experts. And so I didn't object at trial because the court had said they could do that because they get trained. But he nonetheless offered an opinion, and so we get to impeach that opinion without having to ask him, and that's what we've been doing in part about that. And that's why I think Mr. Gray's concern about proper form of impeachment is just wrong. We're just attacking what appears to be the underlying basis for his opinion.
Well, aren't you supposed to do that on rebuttal? So,
I know of no requirement that we save that for rebuttal, Your Honor, because we rebut their case, and he was our witness. But regardless, I don't know if
all right, we're kind of getting off base here. I mean, we're talking about these still photographs. They're out. I'm not going to reconsider my decision on that. Okay? The video evidence is the evidence. So, that's my ruling on that, and there's no need for this officer to testify as to what the video evidence shows. You can show that to the jury. Okay. All right. Okay, counsel, let's talk about what we're doing from here on out with this witness. I am not going to allow BCA agents to get up on the stand and tell the jury what a video shows. The video is the evidence. Especially when it comes through the mouth of a BCA agent, you know, the jury may get the impression that this person is an expert at looking at video. The jury's going to have that video. They can look at it as much as they want in the jury deliberation room. The state has the right to argue that Officer Johnson wasn't in danger of getting dragged by the car in final argument. That's totally fair game. You know, the state can argue and stop the video in final argument and say, look, both of his feet are on the ground. That's all fair game, but I'm not going to let the witnesses tell the jury what's on there. Okay? As far as the photographs that 403, 405, and 402. I understand that the defense never got those still photographs, correct?
Yes.
And they're not even on the state's witness list or the exhibit list.
Your Honor, the defense did receive those exhibits. This morning we had a 15-minute break for them to review them. That was at approximately shortly before 11 o'clock. They've now had about 2.5 hours to review the still images. They aren't novel per se because they are still images of the videos that they have had for several months. I have not heard any renewed claim that they are continually prejudiced by us being able to introduce these images. These are images which the jury has seen in real time in the video, but these are specific excerpts which have been created so that they are isolated exhibits so that they can be shown to the jury.
Judge, you've ruled. We're going to do it for a month.
Yep.
Yes, I am not going to reconsider any of my prior rulings, no matter how many times you want to argue it. Okay, so.
Where the state was seeking clarity, Your Honor, is that this morning it seemed like the court was saying you can't use still images to allow the witness to explain what was observed in the video. Then the state utilized the video and asked the witness to explain what was being seen in the video, and that too was cut out. What the state is asking now is to admit these still images as exhibits, but I will refrain from asking the juror what is specifically occurring in these still images.
I've ruled that the still exhibits, the still photographs, 402, 403, and 405 will not be admitted. The objection is sustained. Okay. All right. Are you ready for the jury?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy. Oh, by the way, one-word objections, please, okay? And say one word, and then if you need to make an argument, we've got to use these buggers, okay? Okay. Thank you, Deputy. Oh, mics. If you're going to be speaking, go to the podium because our poor court reporter can't hear, okay? That also prevents you from talking over each other, right?
Yes, Your Honor. Will do.
Okay, please be seated. All right, members of the jury, I'm sorry for the short delay. Okay, you may continue, Mr. Larson.
I'll be brief. Could you please redisplay Exhibit 204? Agent Petersen, I'm showing you Exhibit 204. Would you agree that this is the video paused exactly at 2:02 p.m.?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, you may cross, counsel.
Good afternoon, Special Agent Petersen.
Good afternoon.
Would you agree with me that a visual observation being there is much better than a body-worn camera planted on your chest?
A visual observation?
Yes,
What do
you're
you
there
mean?
and you can see everything, and your body-worn camera only takes up a certain amount. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And with respect to hollow point bullets, they're used by law enforcement because they do not leave the body and shoot somebody else. Is that a fair statement?
Generally speaking, yes.
Yeah. And that's why they're used by law enforcement?
Yes.
And does your office use them?
Yes.
And when, did you notice in these videos that Johnson's video was a second off of Potter's?
No.
All right. And with respect to the taser statement, you're familiar with tasers?
Yes.
And is, when somebody yells taser, 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 that's warning to the other law enforcement officers that are there to back off. Fair statement?
I don't know if it's fair to say to back off.
But to not touch the guy because you might get electrocuted.
That's part of the reason, sure. Yes.
What's the other reason?
To give warning that the taser is going to be deployed.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Counsel?
Agent Petersen, earlier this morning you testified about your career in the Force Investigations Unit, correct?
Yes.
You've evaluated over 70 claimed reports of excessive force, correct?
Yes.
Including several homicides.
Judge, I object to this. I never went into past experience. It's outside the scope of cross-examination.
I'm getting to a point, Your Honor.
Okay. You may continue for a while.
In your experience, has reviewing body-worn camera footage been a critical aspect of your investigation?
Yes.
And indeed, requesting body-worn camera is a critical request that is made in an investigation.
Same objection, Mayor. I didn't go into requesting body-worn cameras at all.
The objection is sustained beyond the scope.
Yep. What would occur if there was no body-worn camera to review in an officer-involved case? If you had no body-worn camera footage?
Object to that is not relevant, Your Honor, and it's also outside the scope.
I am again sustaining the objection outside the scope.
Does body-worn camera footage have certain benefits?
Same objection, Your Honor.
The objection is overruled.
When body-worn camera video exists, are there certain benefits to reviewing that video versus relying on the testimony of witnesses?
I didn't ask that question. It's outside the scope. I talked about visual observation.
Okay, one word objections, please. I'll let you answer that.
Gonna have to repeat it, I'm sorry.
Sure. Does reviewing body-worn camera footage in these cases have advantages at times than simply relying on the testimony or statements of witnesses?
At times, yes.
Yes. No further questions.
Special Agent Peterson, what I asked you was, is a visual observation of something, forget about the testimony, a visual observation of something better than a body-worn camera that has tunnel vision?
It can be, yes. It'll be different.
It's a large, you can see it better if you're there looking at it than a body-worn camera. Isn't that true? Because you see more?
Yeah, that would be accurate.
Thank you.
Mr. Larson?
What advantages does reviewing body-worn camera have in your investigation?
Object, Your Honor, outside the scope of recall.
The objection is overruled.
What is the advantage of body-worn camera? It provides a independent depiction of an event.
That can be reviewed?
That can be reviewed.
Paused?
Yep, yes,
Brought into court as an exhibit?
yes.
No further questions.
Anything further, Mr. Chairman? Anything further?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The state may call its next witness.
This time, Your Honor, the state calls Michelle Escalante.